Hello, and thank you for watching. My name is Lauren Jones, otherwise known as Ren the Talker, and today I am here with a very special guest, Brandy Kellum. Brandy Kellam is a two-time Emmy Award, two-time Telly Award, and Gracie Award winning investigative journalist and filmmaker whose reporting has sparked public action and informed policy conversations. Her reporting has appeared in ProPublica, The Chronicle of Higher Education, CBS News, NBC News, Essence, and more. She is currently a Spencer Education Fellow at Columbia University, and she also serves as an adjunct professor, my professor, of journalism from Norfolk State University. Thank you so much for being on with me, Professor.
Thank you so much, and I'm so proud. I'm a proud professor right now. You sound lovely and beautiful. So,
I
yeah,
do.
I'm loving it. So good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, hopping in. First and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm good. Busy as usual. I have a
Yes.
lot of things coming up on the docket, but overall, pretty good. Pretty good.
Good, good. Okay.
Mhm.
So hopping into my first question. I just read your bio. And so now I want to ask, who is Brandy Kellum?
Oh,
I like to do it this way because I like to read the bio first and get the accolades and the awards out of the way because I kind of want to disarm you a little bit.
oh.
Put you in the position to have a conversation with me. So who is Brandy Kellum?
Okay. So I like to answer that question without the accolades and the definition because I like to think that I'm more than what I've accomplished in life.
Yes, you are.
So in my mind, I am the person who believes that I can do anything I put my mind to. I am not a conventional I don't have a conventional approach to anything, and my life has pretty much been unconventional. So I like to consider myself an underdog sometimes as well. So, if you were asking me who I am, it's the underdog who puts in the work to accomplish what I want to accomplish in life, regardless of the circumstances I'm given.
Wow. I want to shut the interview off. Okay. Okay. You just gave me so much. Alrighty. So, my second question.
Okay.
I just want to know because it's interesting to me. Is it true that you ran track in high school?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm
The 4x4, right?
4x4, the 400, the 500, the 800. I ran cross country. Yeah.
And your dad was your coach?
My dad helped coach me, but he was my basketball coach. Now, where are you getting this information?
I gotta do my research. I gotta do my research. Wow. Okay.
Like, how did
And
you
you.
find that part out? Okay. My dad, he was a coach. I ran track, but I also played recreation basketball because I loved the sport of basketball. And I thought maybe I would try basketball or track in high school. I wasn't quite sure. But when I thought about basketball, it was because my dad, he coached me when I was a rec league player. And so, yeah, that's what inspired me to do well in sports overall because he really was like a mental coach for me even though he
Yeah.
did coach me athletically in the basketball.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. And I heard that your favorite movie was Love and
It
Basketball at the
was?
time. Is that still true?
Yes, kind of. I mean, I feel like I've outgrown it a little bit because,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm a brown sugar girl myself.
right, right.
That's
That's
me.
a good movie. That's a good film.
It is.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, knowing that, I also read somewhere that you plan to either be an Olympic track star or go into the FBI.
That's also true.
So,
That's also true. You definitely done your homework on me.
so I want to know what brought you to journalism? And this is kind of a two-part question. I want to hear about your path. You mentioned that everything about you is unconventional.
Mhm.
And I had the opportunity to just hear a little bit about it. But if you could just go into depth for me about what brought you here, and if you could describe your journalism career in one word, which you kind of already did, but if you have another, that's cool.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Wow. I think, well, let's see. I did say unconventional, but if I were to I mean, this is gonna be a very cliche word, but my career really has been like an authentic journey, right?
Mm.
Or maybe authentic is another way to describe it. because and I'll lay it out for you, and then I'll explain why I say authentic, because I never envisioned myself as a journalist. Most journalists I meet, they grew up watching TV news, nightly news every night. Their parents read the newspaper. They read the newspaper. It was a household thing, right? It was sort of like they were introduced to it at a young age, and they grew up around that, and then they decided they wanted to pursue it as a career. For me, I wasn't doing that as a kid. I was outside playing games and having fun, and not that other households weren't, but what I'm saying is, and not that my parents did not instill in me education, it's just that from our standpoint, we really value like well-rounded experiences. And so I didn't grow up in a household that was very strict or conservative on one element of education, right? Sports was education for us. Playing outside with our friends was like education for us. Being together as a family was another form of a bond that formed our basis of education, right? And so when I grew up, I valued athleticism, and I thought, I did really well in high school in track. I actually ran track in college as well. And in my mind, I thought I'm going to the Olympics, right? So education was important to me, but at the time I was really passionate about pursuing a career in sports. And I did grow up like my dad. Now that I think about my career, I think maybe I was introduced to filmmaking at a young age and I just didn't realize it at the time, because my dad actually used to film us as kids. We would just make these family films all the time. Like I still have them from when we were like, these are like 30, 40, 30-year-old films at this point.
Wow.
If you That's kind of unconventional if you think about the way that we documented our family history back then, was through making these cute little family films. And my dad was really into filmmaking in a way because he owned a video store at one point. He's been entrepreneurial. So he owned a video store at one point, but he used to film us a lot as kids. And so I really enjoyed that. And my senior year of college, actually, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life, because I focused on sports so much that I did not seek out any internships in college. I didn't have any professional experience whatsoever. I had nothing on my resume that could show I was ready for a job once I graduated from college. And it happened that my senior year, I had the opportunity to work on a documentary film because I was a resident advisor as well as an athlete. So
Mm.
our resident advisor department, the whole RA staff at UNC Chapel Hill was involved in making this film about poverty on UNC's campus. And so I had an opportunity to do some editing with that film. And I realized, oh, I really do enjoy this. Maybe this is something I could pursue a career in, because I had majored in sociology, but I hadn't quite figured out how I was going to pursue that field after graduation. And so filmmaking seemed like a nice step in the right direction of applying my sociology interest with media. And so I started thinking about documentary films as a career. And I ended up coming back to Virginia. As I was at college in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I came back to Virginia because I remember I told you I had no professional experience. I really had to start from like ground zero. And so I started volunteering at a local TV station here that recorded their news. Like, and we're talking about news is supposed to be live like every day, twice to three times a day. And they recorded one show like a week. And
Wow.
so, and shout out to Channel 48 News in Chesapeake. But yeah, so I started volunteering there, and then I, through word of mouth, heard about a friend of the family that who actually is a legend in this area when it comes to local radio. He was on one of the first Black radio stations in our area. And so that tells you his experience and his knowledge, right, of this field. And so I mean, he's about 60 years my senior, right? And he became my mentor. And so he had a local radio show in Norfolk, Virginia at the time that I was looking for a job back in like 2007, 2008, somewhere around that time. And he told me I could come shadow him. And I always preach to my students about shadowing. That you
Mm.
can come shadow me at the station and learn about how radio is produced. And I'm like, okay, great, because maybe this experience will lead me in a direction of filmmaking. I don't know how it's going to do that, but it just feels right.
Yeah.
I went to the station, and instead of allowing me to shadow, he threw the microphone in my face and made me a co-host on the spot. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, "Okay, well, we gonna roll with this then." So I did that for about 2 years, and then he suggested that I apply for grad school because I needed some sort of journalism background in order to apply for, mainstream media jobs. And so I ended up getting into Syracuse University. Not on the first go round. I got waitlisted my first go round, and I got into the school my second time applying. So that's also unconventional, right? Because I didn't give up after I was rejected the first year I applied. I said, okay, waitlisted is better than no. So let me apply again. And I did some things within that year to elevate my experience, and then I reapplied. And it's funny because the faculty advisor at the time that I got into Syracuse, I remember the first meeting. I know I'm going on a little tangent, but I got to give this story.
I'm listening. Yeah.
But the first time I saw her, I would never forget her name, Donna Hayes. And when I got rejected the first time around, I called her, I emailed her actually, and I told her who I was, and I said, I know I got rejected, but I'm gonna apply again. I'm gonna up my GRE scores. I'm gonna get this experience, and I wanted to let her know I'm not going to let this go, right? And so when I applied again and I got into the program I wanted to get into, which was the broadcast and digital journalism program, on one of my first days in the building, in the Newhouse building, the Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse. I saw her and she said, "You know what?" She said, "You never gave up." And that was one of the first things she said to me. And I said, "Yeah, I didn't give up." And so it just goes to show you that, and mind you, I had a really low undergraduate GPA, like lower than what you would expect a student to have getting into Syracuse University's communications program, which is actually one of the top 3 in our country. Like my GPA was low. I'm not even gonna say what it was, but it was low. Okay, I probably couldn't have gotten into some local colleges with that GPA. Okay, we're being real. And the fact that I was able to get into Syracuse University with that low of a GPA, like I pretty much like a C minus GPA. Let me just give it to you like that. C minus GPA.
Wow.
That just goes to show you that sometimes it's just about the tenacity and the persistence, and less about how qualified you are for something. Like, and I think people stop at, well, I don't think I'm qualified, so I'm not even gonna apply. Like, I wasn't qualified on GPA, but I was qualified on my determination, my tenacity, and my
Your
will, my
character.
character, and all that. And
Yeah.
that has opened a lot of doors for me as well, right? And
Mm.
so, anyway, fast forward, Syracuse. I get into Syracuse. I go through the program. In the program, in the summertime, and we end our program in the grad program. You have the opportunity to do a capstone experience in Washington D.C., where you go to D.C. as a class. So we would go as a cohort, and we would report for a local TV station in the country of our choosing. We would try to find one and get assigned to be their local DC reporter. And it was meant to give the students real experience before they graduated. So that was the last part of our program. But I was like, you know what? No, I didn't come this far to go to DC and do that. I want to go bigger than that. Not that that wasn't a great opportunity, because it was definitely for somebody who wants to be on air. But I hadn't really figured out what I wanted to do yet. And so I had applied for a lot of different opportunities, and I ended up getting an internship at MSNBC in New York. And so I was able to work it out with my grad school director, Lynn Adrian, at the time. And I was like, okay, hey, I know we're all supposed to go to DC, but I have this great opportunity in New York, and I really would love to take advantage of this. And so they permitted me to do my capstone in New York City at MSNBC. So the last part of my graduate school semester, I was in New York. And so once I got to New York, I was like, I ain't going back home now. I'm gonna stay here. And so I just worked my butt off, and From internship, I got placed into a what they call a not freelance, but it's sort of like a contractor role. So they kind of take you through layers before you get the real job at the company. So you're intern, and then for a year you get into a contractor role, and then in that contractor year time, you have to find permanent placement somewhere within the company. And so as you know, like I'm always unconventional with my career path, and clearly it got to a year and I was like, I don't have a placement. What am I gonna do? And I remember meeting with, again, networking is key here. So I met with a couple of different show producers. They let me shadow within MSNBC, and they made it so that and now I'm gonna shout out Yvette Miley, who was I believe at that time the vice president of MSNBC. They asked her permission to move me from my position on daytime to extend my contract another 3 months to give me more time to find a permanent role and put me on a primetime show. So that would give
Mm.
me a little bit more experience. And so I actually got placed on Lawrence O'Donnell's show for like 3 months, working
Wow.
at like working alongside his booking team. And that's when I realized, okay, booking is where I can find my place in this company. So I went to a producer who was in charge of hiring the bookers for the MSNBC daytime hours. So I'm on prime time, but I'm like, I gotta find placements. So let me just let people know that I'm interested in booking if they need a booker. So I literally went to her office and I sat down and I said, hey, I've been booking on Lawrence O'Donnell's show and I'm interested in booking as a job. And she said, oh, you want to be a booker? I said, yeah. She said, okay, you're hired to work the weekends. And I'm like, well, okay.
All right.
You
Wow.
work weekends? Yes, I'll work weekends. That means I got a job.
Right. Right.
And that's how I ended
Wow.
up getting my first job at MSNBC. So you kind of see like the path
Yeah.
was not apply, get a job, apply, get a job. It was
Yeah.
go to school, get an internship, get a job, nothing. It was never linear like that. It was,
Yeah.
it was very unconventional in terms of me just trying to like chart my own way. And it worked for me. And so,
Yeah.
fast forward, I worked at MSNBC for about 5 or 6 years, realized I wanted to be a reporter. I started doing some writing on the side, went to the BET Awards, covered that on my own, what have you. Decided I needed to leave to grow. I moved from MSNBC to CBS streaming. I worked at
Mm.
CBS streaming for about maybe 2 years. And then now shout out to Kim Godwin, who's another legend in this business, another phenomenal Black woman who was the first Black women president at ABC News.
Wow.
And so while I was at CBS streaming, I ended up launching an original series there, and I think that helped to make my name a little familiar with folks that worked in that building. I had a conversation with Kim Godwin, and long story short, they were looking for a digital journalist in Washington, D.C., and she hired me. She hired me based on my tenacity, my persistence, my innovation, because the experience I had probably did not match the level of someone who had the experience needed to shoot video and edit and all that, but that could be learned. So Kim
Yeah.
hired me based on my ability to withstand all types of circumstances that come when it comes to being a producer
Yeah.
and a journalist in this industry. Sometimes you're gonna have challenges. You're gonna have to work through those challenges. You're gonna have to be innovative. Sometimes you need to be more creative to get things done. And I had all that, right? So she saw that in me and she hired me to be a digital journalist in DC. And I ended up in that role covering George Floyd's death, the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And that led me to this understanding that now I want to do investigative work. And so I applied for a fellowship at Columbia University and I got that fellowship. And basically that led me back here to Virginia, which is what I do now. So that was a real quick fast track towards the end of the story, but basically, I report on housing from the lens of university displacement of Black communities, and I have been doing this supported independently for the last 4 or 5 years as an independent journalist through various fellowships that have supported that work.
You know, when I hear your story, I heard you tell a little bit of it before, like I said, but hearing you like really go into detail, I know you said authenticity and
Yeah.
unconventional.
Hmm.
What I hear is aligned.
Oh,
I love that for you. It sounds like that you were prepared before you were positioned
ooh.
for any of the opportunities. And what I really love, what sticks out in your story is that there were a path of Black women
Mm.
who invested in you
Mhm,
along the way.
mhm.
I want to ask you, as a Black woman who you found yourself in multiple fields, how has it been for you working in every field, specifically in investigative journalism? You've been supported by Black women, but have you always felt supported in your field?
No. I'm just being real. I'm just being real with that.
Yeah.
No, and that's just like that is also a part of one of the things I hope that we address as journalism is going through this reckoning, so to speak, right
Yes.
now.
Yes, ma'am.
That I hope that we also address the fact that we need to take care of our journalists better, specifically Black journalists, especially given the stories that we have to cover that not only impact us personally, but the people that we know, love, and care about. And then we have to report that as if we are outside looking in. It is like an
Yeah.
out of body experience that I think could be very taxing to mental health. And when you're in an industry that also makes it difficult for you to be a journalist, as a Black journalist, not feeling supported and appreciated, it's like, it's just like trauma-centered work, you know what I
Wow.
mean? From various angles. And that's not healthy, like in the long run. So I hope that as we go through this reckoning in the industry as a whole, that we really consider how we care for our journalists. But
Yes, ma'am.
that being said, no, I didn't always feel supported at large. And I've spoken publicly about this before, that I felt like at the beginning of my career, even though I did have certain individuals that invested in me, because I don't want to overlook that there are people who helped me get to where I am today. I would not be here if it weren't for those folks. When I speak about the lack of support, I'm thinking about the support that I think should have been there, especially as an early career journalist, that I felt like there were circumstances that I was exposed to that, whether intentional or not, 'cause I'm gonna try to give benefit of the doubt here, whether intentional or not, whether it was based on implicit bias or not, it did not make my experience easier. Like, it's already hard enough being, and I'm not saying the experience has to be easy. What I'm saying is it shouldn't be overcomplicated by that level of bias, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be rewarding to be challenged in this industry and then overcome those challenges if
Yeah.
those challenges aren't based on how people treat you based on how you look, how you talk, where you come from, your level of
Yeah.
education and all that. So that's what I mean by supported. I think that there is, we all know, an elephant in the room in this industry, and also maybe not because we're talking about it more loudly now, that people of color are treated worse in our industry as a whole, in the media industry as a whole. And I
Wow.
experienced that part of it, right? That,
Wow.
in my journey, I found that there were a lot of times where I had to think about my experience from the lens of this is because I'm a Black woman and not because I came from the top three program in the country for broadcast journalism, and then undergrad, one of the public Ivy Leagues, UNC Chapel Hill, which is, not an easy school to get into, and neither is Syracuse University. And so, not that I was expecting a handout, but I was expected to be treated as someone that came from that level of determination,
You did the work.
point blank period, right? Like,
Yeah.
work. But I felt like I had to work twice as hard just to prove myself, even if I had already done work prior to, because I wasn't
Wow.
given the entry, like the resources. I think someone learning at the stage that I was at, given that grace to feel comfortable learning. And that's so challenging when you don't feel like you have the grace, right? Because you have to show up so perfect, even if you don't even know what you're
Yeah.
doing, and you can't make any mistakes. You're like fearful of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not healthy to think that way, but then you that actually cuts off your ability to learn. And I
Yeah.
really
And be creative.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't learn and be creative if you're in a hostile environment where you feel like you can't, it's not safe to ask questions and make mistakes because you're going to be judged differently than other people that don't look like you.
And it's crazy. You called yourself the underdog earlier. And I was wondering where that was coming from because it's so funny. I don't see you that way. I have been in the room with you a couple of times, and each time that I saw you, or each time that me and you were in the same room together, you would sit in the back, and it doesn't matter where you were. Somebody would say, "And y'all need to be talking to her."
That's hilarious.
Like, no, no, like literally actual panelists of an event would point to the back of the room and call you out. It's crazy to me to hear, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it's crazy to me to hear that you have not always gotten that support and that you even consider yourself the underdog. But I think that that goes into something that you told me.
Mm,
I think it was our first or second class, and it has stuck to me like glue. Is to always look for the overlooked.
mm.
Um, Always look for the overlooked. The moment that you said that to me, it put so much into perspective for me. Um, I want to know from you, how are you making sure that you are not overlooking the next person? You have personal experience with being the underdog, with being a Black woman, being treated a certain way in the field. What are you doing to shift that paradigm?
Well, one, I like to consider myself giving the experience that I did not like the experience I got in my journey, making sure I give that to those that are coming up behind me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I want to be the person that I did not have when I was coming through. I want young Black journalists to feel safe coming to me, asking questions, and navigating this industry that's very tough and even probably tougher now than it was when I came in, right?
Mm,
I want them to feel that if they don't have it out there in their newsroom or in the world as they are practicing their craft, that they can always come talk to me because
yeah.
I want to feel like a safe space. I want them to be prepared, right? I want them to be prepared the way that I know they need to be prepared mentally and like educate, like from the mental health perspective and understanding how tough it is and being
Yeah.
able to deal with that criticism and that harsh treatment that comes with this industry. I want them
Yeah.
to be prepared for that, but I also want them to be savvy in this space and be able to accomplish whatever they need to and be respected in this industry because they know what they're doing, right? And so that's what I want to give to. That's how I prepare the generation that I think is coming up behind me to navigate this space so they aren't overlooked. But truth be told, I think about being overlooked now as almost like a gift because it allowed me to uh like actually learn myself, right? Appreciate who I am and what I bring to the table, right?
Mm,
So now I have so much of a greater appreciation for who I am because who I am is what you see manifested in the work that I'm doing right now, right?
yes, ma'am.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but that came with a lot of growth, a lot of first internalizing the trauma, then realizing it wasn't my burden to carry, then realizing, you know what, I'm
Mm,
here for a reason. I'm here because I'm supposed to be at this table. Whether people treat me that way or not, I'm here because I deserve to sit at this table. And y'all need me at this table, quite frankly. Y'all, I really do.
yes, you gotta say that again. Hold on. I know that's right.
Yeah, so that's where that
Wow.
like that edgy energy comes from growth though, right? From
Yeah.
realizing that if I'm here for a reason because you talked about
Yes, ma'am.
alignment.
Yeah.
God did not place me in these spaces just to be there. I believed I was there. I was in those spaces for a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
definitely to contribute to my growth, to make me the woman that I am today, to be able to handle the work that I'm actually doing. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe in somewhere along the way, I actually helped others, right? And I want to continue to do that, like right now as a journalist, as an independent journalist, and as a professor.
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, you are doing just that. I want to let you know, I don't want to talk too much about myself because I'm interviewing you, but I just have to let you know that I had a goal this year to do an interview a month. And I have had like so much, it's only February, but I've had like so many little discrepancies come up. And it was like a light bulb, Brandy Kellam. It's like, what, she don't want to talk to me, because I have not done an interview yet.
Yeah.
But when I tell you that, one, you are my first guest of the year, and I could not have asked for a better one. Because Professor Kellum, I know a lot of cool women in my life. I've been raised by cool women. You are one of the first culture shifters that I have ever
Wow.
met.
Culture shift? Wow.
Culture shifter. Yes, ma'am. Receive it. You are one of the first culture shifters that I ever met. And it has been a privilege to watch you, to be under your leadership for as long as I was. And I'm so grateful to have you here. So, yes, you absolutely are doing the work. And so I just want to thank you for that.
What? I really appreciate it. That really
Absolutely.
means a lot to me. It's not even
Yes,
like an
ma'am.
ego thing for me. It's like because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I feel
And listen,
good. Go ahead, go ahead.
yes, ma'am. And I see you. We see you. Like I said, you will be sitting in the back and someone will point you out. We see you. You are not unseen at all. It's a value of yours
Yeah.
to look for the overlooked, but I want you to know someone is always looking for you.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yes, I just wanted to say, okay, moving on to my next question. I just had to put that in. Um, you've played a key part in some of America's most important stories. You mentioned covering George Floyd's protest, the protest in 2020 and his death, Trump's 2020 impeachment trial, and even reporting on the Christopher Newport University displacement of Black communities of color. I want to ask, how have these moments influenced the way that you approach your journalism today? How have they improved or influenced your approach?
I think number one, those first two stories you mentioned, the impeachment trial of President Trump, as well as George Floyd, so particularly covering George Floyd in Minneapolis, shifted my approach to journalism and it made it more community centered, right? So prior to that, as I'm navigating my career, I don't know exactly what my work as investigative journalism was going to be. It's just that I knew that once I left Minneapolis, I wanted to do something that was going to help the community that I identify with, which is the Black community, right?
Yeah.
And so that definitely shifted my approach to journalism. It certainly made it more community centered because I had done some work in Minneapolis that was community centered in terms of reporting. And I just realized how important that was. And so I started thinking and trying to come up with ways to marry my interest in investigative journalism with that. And that's when I ended up applying for that Columbia University fellowship. But all that being said, I just really think that my approach now has been to be like shed a light on truth, right? I think
Mhm.
that's what my work really does speak to. It speaks to first it's community centered in terms of telling stories and actually changing narratives because it's not
Yeah.
like these stories weren't already people weren't aware of these circumstances. I just think the voices that were at the forefront of these circumstances were overshadowing voices who had been experiencing them in a way that I thought was adding to trauma to those who experience these injustices. And my work in Newport News and in Virginia has been to shift that narrative around university expansion to show that sometimes we look at universities as these institutions of public good, but they also have marked histories that aren't as pretty and have led to challenges that have affected Black communities. And so my work has been in these times, as I have moved through my career, and maybe in some ways, I think of every step of my career as getting me closer to where I am now. But definitely Minneapolis significantly shifted my approach, made it way more community centered. And I think you see that in my work now because I have been able to continue this work for 4 or 5 years without working. And I want to like emphasize this part of it, like without needing to work in a traditional newsroom to do so. And to me, that speaks to the power of community centered work when you can work and your work does something to shed light on the challenge and the trauma experienced by a group of people. And you can do so on your own terms, but also honors, you can do so in your own terms that also simultaneously honors their history and their experience. And we need that more than ever right now.
Yeah. Yeah. What has been your proudest moment so far
Oh, wow.
in your community-centered work?
Oh man, it's so hard to say proudest moment because every time something happens, I'm in awe, right?
Yeah.
I'm in awe. And this is not to like brag on myself, but I think about all the opportunities that have been created based on a choice that I made to come back to Virginia and tell this story.
Hmm.
Isn't that it's like, and this is not me bragging at all by any means, right? Because I don't take full credit for this. What I'm saying is that if I had made the choice, maybe someone else would have done this story, but I don't think they would have done it the way I did. But
Yes, ma'am.
the alignment, everything had to align the way
Yes,
it
ma'am.
aligned in order for this change what we're seeing develop right now to happen. I mean, we're having conversations at the state level in Virginia about community displacement of black communities by public universities.
Yes,
And I don't
ma'am.
think I've ever seen that in all my time, living. I've never seen conversation like that. And I just
Wow.
think like if you think about the choice, like we all have freedom of choice. And sometimes when we are faced with a decision, it can be easy to take the route that's less difficult
Mm.
because of all you have to endure in order to accomplish a goal. Sometimes
Yes, ma'am.
it could be a lot, right? And I've gone through a lot, and I'm not gonna get through all those challenges, but there has certainly been challenges on my path that could have deterred me, that nearly defeated me, but I kept pushing, and I just think like every day it was a choice to keep going, and I just keep doing so. And
Yes, ma'am.
I think the proudest moment for me is the fact that um, I just feel so grateful to be
Yeah.
able to continue to do this work. And every time something new comes up with it, it gives me another moment of like confirmation, like divine confirmation that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes, ma'am. And see, when you are shifting cultures, like I said, it comes with some challenges.
Yeah.
And like you said, we are in a time of reckoning for journalism and for the field of media in general. You don't get to come and shift cultures like this, inspire conversations like this, and not experience some pushback. I think that comes with the territory. And so what I would ask you is, what has been your favorite trial that you've experienced thus far?
Favorite trial. Ooh.
Mhm.
Mm, 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 mm,
Not three mm.
Girl. I can give you a story that I feel like brought everything full circle for me, which I'm constantly reminded of, right? So here's the
Mhm.
trial and here's the full circle moment, okay?
Mhm.
And without naming names or what have you, prior to me taking on this work full time and moving back to Virginia, I was employed somewhere else and I had the funding to work on portions of this story. But soon I realized that I was not going to be able to complete that work with the current employer, right? And that was because of just certain challenges that I faced trying to get people responsible for my day to day to I'm trying not to name names here, but just to give me the space to be able to develop this work. Well, fulfilling my day job because obviously I did have a day job, so I was doing this work and I had a day job as well, but I was asking for support in certain areas to within reason, right? It was not unreasonable request. Let me be
Yeah,
clear. I was
yeah,
asking for support within reason to work on this and get it done within my previous role. And I just was not finding that I had that support at large. And so um to be truthful, I had started this work with the Columbia University Fellowship back in 2021, and that was supposed to be a 6-month fellowship that turned into like a year and a half of me trying to get one story published. And that was just that was the first, I think, biggest challenge I had during this work was trying to understand why can't I get this work done, right? Like, and it's not me. I'm doing everything I can. I have great sourcing, I have great materials, I've shown this. Like it seems like where I work, you all are interested in publishing this, but I keep getting hurdle over hurdle over hurdle, and there's so many different walls going up, and I can't work around all these walls, and I don't even understand why these walls even exist, right? And so I had to come to the realization that I'm not going to get it done here. And it was a scary moment for me because number one, I had signed on and received money from Columbia University to get this work done. It was supposed to be done in 6 months, and I'm a year and a half into it, and I don't have anything to show for my work, right? Number two, I had spoken to some of these families, and they believed in me and they believed in the work I was doing, and they saw nothing being done from coming from me. And I feel
Yeah.
like I had this responsibility that I wasn't fulfilling, and it was crushing to know that I kept trying my hardest to get this work published, and I kept running into so many walls and hurdles with my at the job I was at previously, right? And so what ended up happening was I saw an opportunity to apply for another fellowship, and this is now with ProPublica. And in the midst of applying for that, and I won't give the whole story, but I will say, in the midst of applying for that fellowship, um, I was going through I was going through that challenge with the previous company. And I tried to create a space for conversation with them around, hey, like I really want to do this here, but this is what I need from you all to get this done. And once I realized that, the writing was on the wall that, it wasn't going to happen for me, I ended up taking the fellowship with ProPublica and I quit my job. And keep in mind, I had a full-time guaranteed job that I left to take on a 1-year fellowship that was going to end. And after that 1 year, I was going to be jobless. But,
Right.
you know, that fellowship meant me finishing this story. And I just took a leap of faith and decided I'm just going to move. I'm gonna quit this job, move back to Virginia, take this 1 year fellowship, and whatever happens after the 1 year happens. But I have to get this story done. And the week that I found out that I was going to receive the fellowship, I was still at my old employer. But the week I found out I was going to receive the ProPublica Fellowship, I found out that I had won an Emmy, my first Emmy with the previous employer. And I was just
Wow.
like, oh wow, okay, so I'm walking out the door with a fellowship and an Emmy, right? And then but like to add icing onto this cake, right, with the cherry on top, right? In the work that I did within that year, I won another Emmy, right? So it
Mhm.
was like there was like this full circle moment for me that to me it was so clear. I'm supposed to be doing this work because
Yes, ma'am.
not only did I get sent out the door with, hey, here's like you may not know what's coming after this year, but I'm gonna send you out the door with an Emmy and a fellowship. And I'm thinking in my mind, I can use those tools to navigate after this fellowship is over with. But then I ended up winning an Emmy for my work during that period. And I was just, you see what I'm saying? It's just,
Yes, see.
it's confirmation that I was, yeah, right. It's like, oh, okay. Like that was my I remember when they announced that Uprooted won the Emmy. And by the way, that Emmy was for me being a film director, which is like my first ever that's my first ever film directing, and I won an Emmy off that, right? And so I'm literally walking down, like I know you can't, if you can see thought bubbles like in my head as I'm walking down the red carpet to receive this Emmy. I literally was just in my mind like, "Oh my God, like, thank you, God, like, thank you," like, and I'm really like, I could feel like my skin was just crawling because I just thought back to the moment of when I left my job and what it was like for me to leave and just believe that I was gonna be okay, and then to get that in me on the other side of it for something for work that I was truly passionate about. It was just like further confirmation for me. And I think that was one of my favorite, like when you talk about favorite challenges, it was like one of my favorite challenges because I didn't know what was going to be I didn't know. I mean, this work, I could have taken this fellowship, done the work, and received zero, squat, nothing for this work, right? And I didn't take it for that. And I think that's the point. Like, I didn't take on the ProPublica Fellowship because I said, okay, this is going to get me some more awards. Like, I took on the fellowship because I wanted to finish this work because I believed in it and it needed to be done. And then I was rewarded because of it, you know?
Unconventional.
Yeah, very much so. The true to my authentic because I don't think and I like to say this and I truly believe this, but I don't think at any point in my journey I lost who I was.
Mm,
Like I've always been true to myself. I may have experienced some challenges along the way. I may have had to shift and change my approach, but I've always been me. I've always and if I wasn't sure of myself, I think the only times I may have been not feeling like myself is when I was unsure of myself, but I didn't change who I was, and I always
mm.
came back to who I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that is where you found most of your success,
Yes.
which is right in the core of who you are.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. Is it true that in your track competitions, we going full circle, you used to have some of your competitions on the campus of the story that you told?
Yes, yes. That's another full circle, right? It's funny because I think that was what led me to initially want to dig deeper into this history because just by chance I had learned about this community that used to exist as I was looking for an idea for my first fellowship application. And when I learned that there used to be a Black community that existed where Christopher Newport's campus is today, I went back to my memories running track in high school, and we used to compete on that campus during indoor track because our area did not have indoor facilities, right? And so that was one of the primary locations where all the high schools in our region would go compete indoors. And
Yeah.
when I thought about the fact that there was a community, a Black community that used to exist there, and that I ran on in the track facilities of a college campus that was on top of that former Black community, it just kind of like didn't sit well with me, is what I'll say. And so I started to learn more and dig more into the history, and that's kind of what led me to this story and to fulfilling the purpose of telling the story. Yeah.
Alignment, unconventional, authentic. This is my last question.
Okay.
You have quite literally ran and are running the race of truth seeking, meaningful storytelling, and seeing the often unseen. I think that the fact of your life that you used to compete on the track that you later reported on, that is you literally and figuratively running the race.
Mm.
I want to ask you, um, what does it mean to run this race well? And then also, what does this next part of your race, this next sprint of your race look like for you?
Yeah, I think so. To answer the first question, to me, what it means to run this race well is to choose, for me, to choose every day to push forward. Because if you think about it, there's nobody forcing me to do this, right? Like, I don't have to report to anyone, so to speak, right? In order to continue this work, I'm choosing to do it every day. And so for me, that is a marathon. That's not a sprint. And
Mm.
sometimes when you're running a marathon, you might not see the finish line for miles, but you got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so that's what it means to me. It means to choose every day to continue this work because it means something. It's important work and it's meaningful to not just to me, but to the people whose stories I'm telling. And then I think your second question was, what's the next part of this marathon look like?
Yes, ma'am. Come on, correction.
I think part of it is continuing to broaden this work and be creative with that, right? And step into lanes that I have never imagined that I could step into, that I never even envisioned myself stepping into, starting out my career as an intern at MSNBC. Now thinking about creating larger bodies of work around this issue, and stepping into those lanes That's what the next phase looks like, and I'm just gonna step in with the full faith that no matter what I do, that I can accomplish whatever I put my mind to, even if I've never done that thing before, which has been my path, right? Has been unconventional. I have stepped into lanes that I had never been exposed to take on opportunities that I had never done before and didn't necessarily have a skill set. I had to develop that along the way, right?
Okay.
I've always been developing as I'm rising. I've never developed to rise, right?
Wow.
Put into these positions and then had to figure it out along the way. And so I think that part of the journey, I'm ready, I'm prepared. I think my journey has prepared me to feel more comfortable just
Mhm.
figuring it out as I go, basically. So that's what it's gonna look like. It's gonna look like just stepping into my work more authentically with more and with more faith and assurance and just taking on things that I've never done before, but continuing to do the work because that's really what it's all about for me.
Wow. Wow. Last question. Last question. Last question. You ran the 4x4, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So we know that the race isn't complete until we pass the baton.
Mhm.
I want to ask you if you could just leave out, as we close the interview, give us something, one word of encouragement to say to the young journalists, like you said, who are watching you, whose paths are also unconventional. And there is so much tradition is waging war against authenticity. Bigotry, bias is waging war against authenticity. Could you just give us something to say to encourage those who also want to run their race?
Mm. So I'll say two things. One, it is definitely important, regardless of what's going on around us, to do the work, right? It can feel discouraging to see this industry almost look like it's being dismantled systemically, right?
Mm.
And then believe, well, what's going to be there for me when I graduate? And I think right now is the time to dig in, to do the foundational work so that once you do graduate, you can pivot. Because I think this season is going to be all about being able to pivot. You might not
Mm.
step into you might step into a traditional workspace with one job. That job could be gone like next month or 2 or 3 months from now. It doesn't mean that you failed in your career. It just means that you need right now to be developing all those foundational skills. So regardless of the circumstances you're presented with in the real world, you can pivot, right? And I tell my students this. Actually had one student that sent me that's repeated it to me yesterday, actually. And I told the student that no matter where I was in my industry, even if I did not like how people treated me, I still learned something in that environment that I took with me everywhere I went because I used that Denzel Washington meme, which is like, I'm leaving here with something, right? Y'all might not be treating me well, or y'all might not give me the job opportunity that I feel like I deserve here, but I'm leaving here with something, right? And so I think that if I could leave the next generation coming up with that, it would just be to prepare, over prepare, build deep foundational skills so you can pivot and leave every place with something that you can take
Yes.
with you so that you can continue to elevate that pivot as you navigate this industry.
Thank you all so much for watching. This is the unconventional, authentic, always aligned, the culture shifter, Brandy Kellam. Where can we find you?
Okay, well, you can find me on you can find me on social media. All my handles are the same. It's Brand Kells, BRANDKELLS. On Instagram mostly. But if you want to connect with me professionally, you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have my own website, which is www.brandykellum.com. And that's it. That's where you can find me.
And you can find me on Instagram at Ren the Talker. I will see you soon. Thank you for watching.